Well, hello and welcome to the Quadruple D, which is a show within a show in my greater podcast that I call Critical Weight Theory. And this is where I sometimes talk about recent news events or whatever. And this is probably going to be a little bit of a quicker episode because I'm going to be talking about the failed Iran peace talks or whatever. That's what they're, still calling them. But, I think it was more performative than anyone else. But there's also an old saying that seems to be applicable to this situation. Never send boys to do a man's job. Now, I think I've heard that expression before, right? It's not that unknown of a saying. I didn't just invent it here. And it really does seem to apply to the scenario. So, remember what was supposed to go down here. They were supposed to go in there and, the media was making it seem like they were going to negotiate our way into like a peaceful, blissful situation. Maybe heaven on earth would unfold before us, and maybe Jesus himself would come back on a winged horse and take everybody up into outer space or whatever the hell the dumb mythology is. But anyway, that did not happen. The talks fell apart, and now Trump is just trying to take over the Strait of Hormuz. And, it's possible that all hell is going to happen again. All hell is going to unleash, as if it wasn't already unleashed enough. So, what exactly was this peace talk or whatever they were calling it? You know, uh, the strategic talks, or I don't know. It was just performative nonsense, I believe. They're supposed to have us thinking that they spent all day talking about the issues and they just couldn't come up with a plan that worked or whatever. And it's pretty evident that these people were not serious because here's the thing. If you want to be a strong man, like a tough guy, you don't always need to be like performatively a badass or whatever. Like, you don't always have to come across like a strong man. People just kind of adhere to what you're saying, just naturally. You don't always have to like threaten other people and all that kind of stuff. So, what this was, in a way, was it was a message to the dumb voting public here in America that, hey, we tried. That's supposed to be the message. We tried to actually seek peace here, even though we started this war. Um, but shucky darn, we just couldn't do it. That's the way the cookie crumbles, or the girls' school gets bombed. And whoops, we just couldn't do it. It just wasn't meant to happen. And it's kind of funny that I said whoops there because that's something that Jeffrey Epstein says a lot in his emails and the Epstein files. And it often seems to involve people dying when he says the word whoops. So maybe that was like a weird little connection here between me saying that and what is about to happen because these warmongers are definitely going to create more death and destruction. And this was also a way, like these talks were a way for JD Vance to make it look like, he's actually interested in peace. And it was a subtle way for him to maybe even slightly distance himself from Trump. It's almost like they're playing good cop, bad cop here. That old thing with there's a good cop who like treats the captive nicely. The criminal suspect is treated nicely, and then the bad cop comes in and rough him up, and that's supposed to like, I guess, scramble the circuits of the person who's in the interrogation chair or whatever. And that's kind of what was going on here, only not just with Iran, but with the American public. Just normalize this type of warmongering shit. And one way of doing that is make it look like you're still maybe interested in peace. You might be beefing up the military industrial prison industrial complex as much as possible. Another billion or another trillion here and there. But gosh darn it, you still like peace. There's still a little bit of Andy Griffith in your core, even though you're like trying to basically mass slaughter people. It's still Mayberry. Maybe you're a little bit more like Barney Fife sometimes than Andy Griffith, but at the end of the day, your heart still is good. You mean well. You just got to bomb those schools and maybe some hospitals and maybe schools, cultural centers, all that kind of fun stuff. And that's just the cost of doing business. And of course, Barron Trump is not going to be drafted into this whole fight. He's going to be on the outside. He's going to be able to look at what the dummies in the world are doing as he presumably inherits a lot of the Trump wealth, you know. So he's not going to be one of the good ones. I can say that much already. And remember, this was also being like the media was even presenting it like it's being led by Vice President J.D. Vance, and he was accompanied by envoy Steve Witkoff. I'm going to do an episode on him possibly tomorrow or sometime within the next few days anyway, because he's another one. Then there was advisor Jared Kushner, who is of course married to Trump's daughter. So gee, I wonder how he, got into this mess. Well, he's got the connections, and they were supposed to drain the swamp, but these people embody the swamp. They are the swamp. They're having a political dynasty over here. And you've got other senior figures who were probably thrown into the mix, but they're considered less relevant. Now, I'm not going to do a little bio on Jared Kushner this week because I think people know enough about him. I think this Witkoff guy is almost more interesting. I mean, all you need to know about Jared Kushner is that he's corrupt and that he inherited his father's wealth and that he's evil. Like that's basically it. I kind of hate to oversimplify politics like that because traditionally I would have been like, oh, I don't want to see people as evil. In fact, that sounds a little too biblical for my atheist mind. But nevertheless, it's like a shorthand way of saying this person sucks really bad. And Jared Kushner, indeed, he really does suck. So, this was supposed to be like a direct engagement in a in a way with the hope for peace, but it never was about peace. It was like a way to make it look like they were, you know, actually interested in anything other than feeding the war machine. But I don't think they were. There's no real sign of that. But the US and Iran have had no formal diplomatic relations since the aftermath of the Iranian Revolution, when a US backed monarchy was overthrown and replaced by an Islamic republic. And since then, most negotiations have been indirect, often mediated by third countries or conducted through international frameworks like the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And I think this was doomed to fail. I think it was just performative, a distraction, and we'll see the destructive results of this distraction soon enough because they're interested in bloodshed. They're bloodthirsty. They want to take over the world in sort of a fascist vision, having the United States at the helm, basically expanding the empire. And make no mistake, that's largely what this is about. And of course, Israel is also involved, but you're not supposed to criticize them. So, I'm gonna leave them out of this for now, because I'm gonna be a coward in this episode, and because you're just not supposed to criticize Israel. They can do what they want. Doesn't it isn't supposed to matter to you if they destroy other people. It's supposed to be something that you're gonna yawn at. Anyway, that concludes this episode. I know it wasn't anything that fancy, but I just wanted to give a general update on our faltering empire, which seems to be crumbling beneath our feet.